Hey guys, the Unsmooth Criminal here, and I am here to A, do some plugs, and B, tell you a story. And first, I have to get done with the plugs, and I have a Discord. I'm going to put it in the description. Please join it. The first 10 people that join, the first 10 people that join, I am making the top 10 criminals of the Discord, and the more what ifs you suggest to me, the higher chance of getting into the top 10, because I'm going to be every week changing who's in the top 10 people who are in the Discord. And this Sunday, I'm going to be doing a talk with you guys, if you guys join the Discord, to have a Q&A, so you guys ask me questions in a chat room, and I answer them from noon to 3 on Sunday, PST, Pacific Standard Time. I know Pacific Standard Time is really late for some people, but Pacific Standard Time is where I live, so if anybody's in New York and listening to this, it's probably going to start when it hits 3, roughly. So I've been asked to do this, and this is going to be pretty much up to canon, or pretty much canon. The only thing I'm going to change, the only two things I'm going to change is a few of the quirks for the previous users for One For All, and I'm going to change a little bit of a few genders. Well, only one, actually. Yeah, two. Inko's now a male. So Izuku's mother is now actually his father, her father actually, because Izuku and his mother are changing genders. So it's going to be Izumi Midoriya, and I want to do another part of this. So you guys tell me a male name for Inko. So in this what if, we start off at the Quirk Doctor. We're not going to start earlier because she doesn't get bullied, and she can easily diffuse the situation because she talks to people. And she has a little bit more courage in this one because everybody actually listens to her and not just brushes her off. So she goes to the Quirk Doctor and she's diagnosed quirkless. So it pretty much goes up to canon all the way up to the last day of middle school, with Bakugo bullying her and her focusing on her smarts. Except Bakugo doesn't bully her as much, because in this one he is arrogant and cocky and brash like Canon, but he has a respect towards the other gender because he loves the Dojin rom-com and stuff like that. So he respects them because he knows that if they get mad enough, you can't do anything about it. So he still calls her a nerd and a loser and a deku. So it's now canon, and she's going through the bridge, and the sludge villain attacks, and All Might saves her. She wakes up and asks for All Might's autograph, and he says already done, and she looks in her notebook and sees it, and this time, before All Might can jump away, she stops All Might with a grab to his arm, and him knowing that if he jumped when she was holding on, she could die. So he stopped and turned around, and he lost track of time when she asked, "Can I be a hero while I'm quirkless?" And he poofed, and she got freaked out just like Izuku in canon, and he said, "I'm sorry, but no, you cannot be a hero while you're quirkless. There's too much risk if you're quirkless." And she looks down and is sad, and then All Might jumps off, and while she's walking home, she hears an explosion and runs out towards it and sees Katsuki Bakugo in the sludge villain. And she's wondering what happened, and she just moves, and she does the same thing Deku does in canon, and she gets scolded, and on her way home, All Might shows up and says, "You've inspired me, and I would like for you to become my successor." Everything happens to canon up to the time that they go to Bodega Beach, when in this version, All Might gives her a list and says that when you get my quirk, you must read this list and burn it. And she says, okay, and so he starts training her, and then 10 months later, the beach is clean, and it's the day of the entrance exams. And All Might gives her the quirk, and he says you read it after the entrance exams, and you better get going because the entrance exams are today. And her putting it together that her physical enhancement, if she uses too much, she could hurt herself because she didn't have a quirk to help balance out the strength, is like, okay, I need to slowly amp up the power and not just go straight full power. Because people have done studies that women are more creative in their methods and more creative in general compared to men. So she can figure things out because she tries everything before in her mind and then puts it into practice. So she gets to the entrance exams and she passes the written exam with flying colors. Like, I think Deku got flying colors in the written exam. And she still has a nervous breakdown like Izuku did in canon. And she still saves Ochako Uraraka in the entrance exams and gets in with the hero points. So we skip to the first day of the classes, and her father was very hesitant of actually letting her go to the exams and be a part of the school, but he finally let her go, and he made a deal with her. If anything happened in that school, he would immediately call the principal and have her transferred to a different school. And she said, okay, fine. And she looked down sad. And so she went to class, and she walked into the classroom, and she saw Bakugo and Ida arguing. Ida's doing that weird hand chop thing. And Bakugo sees her and yells, "Oi, nerd! Why the hell are you here?" And she says, "Oh, Kachan," and starts stuttering, and then everybody else starts to come in, and she gets distracted by somebody. No, it's not Uraraka that the ship is for this one. I know canon it's Uraraka, but I don't like Ochako Deku. I don't know why, I just don't like it. I don't like Aoyama or Mineta, but I have to keep Mineta in here. I'm not covering Aoyama ever. So they all sit down and they're talking, and Izumi notices something behind the teacher's desk. Barely notices it and just pays it no mind, and then all of a sudden this caterpillar thing rolls out of class, and she just was like, okay, that was strange. And then a few seconds later, he zombie-looking man walks into the class and says, "I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, and it took you all 5 seconds to shut up, and that's not good for a hero course." And then tells them all to go out to the training field and put some clothes on. And while the girls are walking, because Midoriya is super curious about quirks and how they work, she asks everybody what their quirk is. Jiro says hers is earphone jack. Momo says hers is creation. Mina says hers is acid. And Hagakure says hers is invisibility. And when they get in there, Deku immediately saw the hole and says, "Momo, can you patch that up?" Momo says, "Sure." And when Mineta said, "The seniors left us a present," it all of a sudden got blocked up, and he's like, "Damn it!" And then Katsuki, who, in this one, since he saw Midoriya as in the original, he saw Midoriya as a friend, but didn't know how to show it. In this one, he has a crush on Midoriya, but doesn't know how to show his feelings. So, it's my what if. Don't judge me. So, Bakugo saw that Mineta was about to look through a hole and got a little mad, and then what he heard after that sealed Mineta's fate. And Mineta said, I wanted to see Midoriya naked, and Bakugo went, "I'm gonna kill him." And he didn't know he said that out loud, and Kirishima was like, "Bro, what is your deal?" Back in the girls' locker room, Mina sees how ripped, and you see the picture, how ripped Izumi is. Izumi, Deku, same person. And asks, "What the hell did you do to get that good looking?" And she goes, I kind of cleaned a beach. And Mina says, "Oh, you mean that, you mean Bodega Beach?" And she goes, "Yeah, I cleaned that the last 10 months. And Mina goes, "Oh, cool, so you're the one who I saw out there." And Izumi says, "Yeah, I was there with my trainer." And Mina says, "You mean that skinny french fry looking dude? Soggy french fry?" And Izumi be like, "I can't tell them. That was All Might." "Yes, that was him." And I go, "What was his name? What is his name?" And she goes, "I don't know. He never told me his name. He just said he would train me." And Mina says, "That's a little sus. But oh well. You look great." A few minutes later, Izumi and everybody else gets out into the field, and they go through the same thing as canon. But in this one, Aizawa does not stop Izumi's quirk because he sees that Izumi's putting it throughout her entire body instead of just throughout one portion. And then she breaks her finger because she accidentally put a little too much force into that. And he says, if your quirk is self-destructive every time you use it, you're not going to be a good hero. And she just looks at him and nods and then goes to the back and does the rest of the tests like normal. And Bakugo's still pissed off that the quirkless loser has a quirk and is showing him up. So it's now a month later, and they are going to the USJ, and she has a little bit more handle on it, so she unlocks full cowling just a little bit earlier. So they get to USJ, and everybody goes to the same places. So Sue, Mineta, and Izumi are all in the water zone. They have the same plan, because it's pretty much canon. I'm going to end off after this one. I think this is going to be a very short one for today. Yeah, it's going to be a very short one today. I may do this in one shot, actually. Yeah, I'm going to do this in one shot, because all I know is canon. So Izumi has the same plan, and she does the same thing, but when she hits the Nomu, it flinches slightly because she went full power, and it hit the absorption, so it didn't break her arm still. And now All Might comes in, and since the Nomu flinched a little from Izumi, and All Might saw that, he saw that Izumi was getting better at controlling it. He's like, okay, I can up her training slightly. But then pretty much the fight ends as canon. The next day, Aizawa walks into the room and says that they're going to have a break, and notices Izumi's not there. And Nezu calls Aizawa into the principal's office and explains to him what Izumi's deal was with her father. And Nezu needs him to go and convince her father to let her stay in school. So the dorm system is inputted a little earlier because Nezu sees promise in her and sees that if she leaves, All Might's not going to be able to keep tabs on her easily. So the dorms are instated a little earlier, and it took All Might in buff form to grovel, and Aizawa promising that she will not get hurt, for him to allow her to go to the dorms and live there. So the dorms are earlier, and Bakugo tells her to meet him in the training ground at 10, and they meet there, and she's trying to talk him down from fighting. And the fight goes to canon, but at the end, instead of him crying out his feelings, he just says one sentence and leaves. Well, she's pretty much almost completely knocked out from Bakugo's fight with her. He says, "I love you," and leaves. Then she passes out, and All Might picks her up and takes her back to the dorms, and they're both on house arrest. Izumi, not starting the fight, is on house arrest for 1 day, and Bakugo, who's started the fight, is on house arrest for 3 days. And it's now time for the sports festival. So the sports festival happens to canon with the obstacle race, and then the cavalry battle. But in this one, Izumi has control over 50% of One for All. One for All. So Izumi is now stronger than canon. A lot stronger than canon, actually. So I'm going to unlock one of the abilities that I'm adding to One for All, because I'm changing a few of the abilities. I forget what all the abilities are, but I know there's Float, Black Whip, and another one. And I'm changing Black Whip. Sorry. I know you guys want this completely canon, but I'm not doing that. And she unlocks her second ability, and while she's practicing one day before the sports festival, All Might walks over and sees her practicing and watching. And all of a sudden, she starts growing in size. And he notices that she grew to twice her normal size when she activates One for All. So All Might runs over and says, you need to slow down because you've unlocked the second quirk in One for All. And she goes, what do you mean second quirk? And he asks, did you read the paper I gave you? And she goes, no. He goes, you need to read that and understand what One for All actually is. And she goes, isn't it a power storing quirk? And he goes, yes and no. You read the paper and you'll understand. So she goes back to her dorm after a good training session. And I know probably won't like this, but she was shorter than Canon Izuku. She was shorter. She was Ochako's height, and now she reads it and reads the quirks that are in One for All, and she's like, oh, okay. And by the time that the sports festival comes around in a week from the training exercise, she's 6 inches taller. So she has to keep getting new clothes every week. And she just got her first shipment of new clothes. So it's now the 1v1s in the sports festival. And she beats Shinso perfectly fine because she's smarter than normal. And Ojiro. Why can I remember his name when I'm not trying to call him by name? But when I call him by name, I can't remember his name. God dang it. Ojiro told her that he thinks his quirk is mind control because he doesn't remember anything from the cavalry battle. She takes that into account and says, okay, we'll be careful. And he starts saying, oh, it must be nice being blessed with a good quirk, which starts to piss Izumi off a little. And she uses her quirk and flicks him out of the ring before he can do anything. So everybody looks at him like he's a monster because he just tried to use his quirk and not actually fight. Now it's on to the Todoroki and Izumi fight. And she tells Todoroki that she gives him the same speech Izuku gave him in canon. And they start fighting, and Izumi sees that she needs to ramp it up to 100% to actually fight Todoroki evenly. So she breaks all of her fingers because it's still too much power for her to hold, even though she's up to 64%. And now, when she activates her quirk, she slowly grows in size. All of her clothes have been made with her hair in it, her DNA within them. And very stretchy, so her clothes stretch, and everybody's like, what the hell is her quirk? And when she deactivates the quirk, she starts to shrink, and she walks to Recovery Girl, gets her hands healed, and she walked to Recovery Girl. She wasn't wheeled away, she walked, because she didn't get knocked out. And Todoroki got knocked out immediately when he hit the wall. So she moves on, Todoroki doesn't. They both hit the wall, but Izumi was still awake. Todoroki wasn't. So they still hit the walls and destroy the arena. So she moves on. Bakugo is wanting this fight, and so he says that he's going full out and he's going to beat her because he's going to be the number one. And she goes, okay, first off, you're not the end-all be-all. And second off, I'm going to be number one. He goes, how? You're quirkless. She goes, apparently not, because I just used a quirk. Do you not remember the fight with Todoroki? And he starts getting pissed off, and he goes full out. He uses the howitzer impact, and she gets hit by it and gets flung out of the ring. So he still is pissed off that he won so easily, because she remembers the words he said when they were fighting. I love you. So she got distracted by him being pissed off and not showing his true feelings with what he actually was feeling, or what he was doing. So he won easily, like Todoroki not using his fire. So he was pissed off in the on the pedestals. But this time it's Bakugo, Izumi, Todoroki. And then Fumikage. So Tokoyami Fumikage. Hold on. And now that sports festival is over, we go on to the internships, and she still goes with Gran Torino, and she still gains a great power boost, and she still fights Stain, but instead of Stain actually not paralyzing her with his quirk, he wasn't able to cut her at all and get blood. So it's now on to the scene with the detective, and the detective says, we're giving the credit to Endeavor, so you guys could be great heroes in the future. And Ida swearing that he's going to change, and he's not going to get his hand healed until he changes. It's stupid that he had to vow to change and become a true hero when he's going to school to become a hero. What? That makes no sense to me. And now we go back to the dorms, and Izumi's on house arrest again. Todoroki's not on house arrest because he was defending himself, because Stain attacked him first. Izumi attacked Stain first, so she's on house arrest for 1 day as punishment. But they go to the licensing exams next, I think. Yeah, licensing exams, then teachers versus... No, it's teachers, then licensing, then overhaul. And that's the arc I'm going to end off on. Overhaul. No, training. License. No. Hero. Or... Oh my God. My brain's not working for this. It's teachers versus students, training, licensing, overhaul. I know overhaul's the last arc, because then it goes from overhaul to the festival. God dang. So it's teachers versus students, and All Might is not as worn out as he was in canon, because the Nomu didn't do as much damage to him, because All Might is a little more protective of his students. So he finished that by going 1,000,000% immediately. But still got away. Duh. Teachers versus students. All Might gets 50% of his weight on his wrists and legs, so he has the weight still. And Izumi, knowing that he's at his limit, and then she gets teamed up with Bakugo, and Bakugo is reluctant to work with Izumi, but he's opening up slowly. Every fight Izumi and Bakugo have, he has a revelation about his feelings. And he finally accepted his feelings slightly. He didn't completely accept them. So he's not a dick to Izumi anymore. And so they team up a little after, and they have pretty much the same plan to canon. And Bakugo and Izumi both leave and escape. And when she finally got him to the nurse's office to get the bruises that he has healed, she sees where his hand is and then slaps him. And then when she leaves, he has a evil smirk on his face. And it's now the training arc, and all the people who didn't pass in this one. So it's now on to the Force training arc, and Izumi, who's a fan of all heroes and knows what the Wild Pussycats can do. She recognizes what's going to happen and jumps down before they're done explaining what they are, who they are, and before people could ask, what is Izumi doing? Pixie Bob goes, "Oh, she ruined the fun." And Aizawa smiles at this and says, "Yeah, she's the problem child." And they look at him and go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah. She's also the closest to my favorite student here." And they go, "Who's your favorite student here?" And he goes, "I ain't telling. My favorite student knows they're my favorite student." And they go, "Oh, true." So Bakugo, not wanting to be outdone by Izumi, jumps down and starts flying over to the thing, and all the rock monsters that Pixie Bob is controlling is now going after Izumi harder than anybody else, because they go after the first person they see or are near. And it's so she gets there. Everybody took 3 hours to get there, so she gets there. No. Yeah, I'm going to say they took 4 hours to get there. And she gets there within an hour and a half, because she went as fast as possible, and Bakugo, seeing that she's going faster than normal, is like, "What the hell's going on?" And Izumi, when she gets to the training area, doesn't know this, but when she deactivated her quirk, she noticed that she was above the ground slightly. And she was confused about this. And Aizawa, who showed up on the bus earlier and was there to greet her, she asked, "Can I go contact All Might real quick? I need to tell him something." And he goes, "Is it something you could tell me?" And she goes, "No." And he goes, "Fine." He says, "There's a phone on the bus. Go contact him." And Bakugo goes, "What do you mean she can't tell you?" And he goes, "There's things in this world that people cannot explain." And then just goes into a sleeping bag and falls asleep on the couch. And Bakugo's like, "Damn it." And Izumi comes out and sees Koda and tries to introduce herself, and this time he does not punch people in the balls. He does not. He punches her in the leg. But her being stronger in this one, he hurt himself punching her. So it's now it's now the scene with Mineta, and Mineta's like, I want to see Izumi, and he starts climbing the walls, and Kota pokes him in the eyes, falls, and all the boys are laughing at him because that's what he gets. And Izumi sees Kota and says thank you, and all the girls, after Izumi pointed for them to cover up. So Kota doesn't fall in this one, because Izumi's a little smarter than normal. Than Mina. So Kota doesn't fall, and he goes, fine, whatever. Starts walking off. But then he trips on himself, because he's still a child, and they can easily do that. He trips, and he's falling towards the ground really fast. And Izumi, who currently has a towel on, runs and grabs him, and he's passed out at this point because he hit his head on the fence. So Izumi takes him in, and Mandalay tells her the story of his parents. And it's the next day. Izumi's training with Tiger, and they're sparring because Tiger's training doesn't work on her anymore. So they're sparring, and it's now the test of courage. Yeah, this is going to be a really quick one-shot. It's now the test of courage, and everybody pushes Bakugo and Izumi together instead of Izuku and Ochako. And while they're going down the test of courage, Izumi gets a faint whiff of smoke, and she goes, we need to tell everybody there's a forest fire. And they go, okay, and they run off the beaten path, and Izumi's like, oh crap, Kota, you continue going. I'm gonna go get Kota, make sure he's safe. So Izumi's already on his way to get Kota. Bakugo runs into Mandalay and tells her the situation, and Mandalay signals all the students to get back to the camp. Izumi's currently out at Kota's little spot, and she walks up on Kota and is talking to Kota. He finally gets over his heroes are the reason why his parents died complex, and then Muscular's, oh, that's cute. And Kota starts panicking because he knows Muscular is the one that killed his parents. And Kota is seeing this villain, but not recognizing him yet. Shoots water at Muscular, and Muscular's like, oh, I remember a hero that did that. The water hose heroes. Yeah. They screamed real good. And Izumi, hearing that, knows that Kota's parents were the water hose heroes, and Muscular dashes straight for Kota, but Izumi dashes faster and picks Kota up and starts running, but Muscular's hot on her heels. So she puts Kota down and says, I will fight you up there, and if you manage to defeat me, then you can have him, because I'm not going to be able to defend him. But I'm not going to let that happen. So he's like, sure, I like killing future heroes and seeing people's dreams crushed. And Kota's asking why is she saving him, and she just says that it's what a hero does. And at this point, Izumi's close to 75% of One for All. So if she does go 100%, if she does more than one, 100% smashes, then she does break her bones. But at this point, it's not even, it's just going to sprain her. She does it one time. So she does 100% smash, and Muscular doesn't flinch. Then she does an 1,000,000% smash, and her arm shatters. The bone's pretty much dust in her arm. Like in canon, Muscular's thrown into the wall. So they all walk into she's hyped up on adrenaline and starts running to the other students to help get them done. But she first takes Koda to Aizawa, and she says to Aizawa that they're after Bakugo because Muscular spilled the beans. And Aizawa says, okay, but we're going to have to find him because he ran away. And Izumi says, dumbass! And Aizawa goes, what did you just say? And she goes, nothing. I'm going to go find Bakugo. And she starts running off, and she finds Tokoyami and Shoji. And they have the same plan. And by this point, Izumi is starting to lose consciousness because of the adrenaline leaving her body and her using all of her energy. So she deactivates her quirk and she shrinks to Kanon Izuku's height. Because she was... No. She shrinks to Momo's height. So she looks like... when she activates One for All, she looks like Midnight. Slightly. But she's Momo's height when she's not in her hero costume or activating One for All. Because Midnight's taller than Momo. If no one's noticed that, why have you not noticed that? So, Shoji is carrying Izumi on his back and doing the same thing in canon as canon. And they get to Todoroki, who's fighting Moonfish, and Moonfish gets absolutely shredded by Tokoyami and Dark Shadow, and then Todoroki does the fire thing, and Todoroki does the fire thing, and Tokoyami shrinks and says thank you for stopping me, and they say they're after Bakugo and we need to go find him, and Todoroki says Bakugo went that way, and they start running after him, and they see Compress, and he just picked up Bakugo, so they saw Compress pick up Bakugo, and he runs. Then they meet them at the portal with Kurogiri, and Baku has a little bit more incentive in this one to escape. So instead of saying, don't you come near me, don't you come near, nerd, he says, I'll be back, nerd. And they have the same thing, and Momo did the same thing with the tracker. But in this one, Bakugo does not have, since he doesn't have quirk suppressing cuffs on, he is in the chair and he causes an explosion in the cuffs, which completely shatter the cuffs. But it also leaves a burn mark on his palm. On both palms, actually. And he escapes with the muzzle on, and he gets out of the bar. And that's when the heroes see him, because they're about to launch their invasion into the bar to rescue him. It was like a week later. And so Izumi is still not conscious from the fight because of the adrenaline wore off, and she's currently in the mindscape with One for All, and understanding the story and understanding what happens when quirk people get it. Because if I remember correctly, that happens in the movie. And since she's basically a prodigy with the quirk, and she's learning quickly, and she sees all the users of One for All and are amazed. And now it's now the All for One fight. And All for One does the same thing in canon, and Izuku runs like in canon. Or not Izuku, Izumi runs like in canon. And they're watching the whole thing, and All Might says the exact same speech, and Izumi's father bursts onto campus and yelling for his daughter to be transferred into a different school. And All Might and Eraserhead both say that the school is the safest place for her because nobody can get on campus that's not allowed on campus. And he says, "What do you mean? I just got on campus. It's just by walking through the front gate." And he goes, "Exactly. Your daughter's here, so you're allowed on campus." Then he says to one civilian on the street, "I need your help. Can you please try to walk onto UA?" And they say, "Sure, Eraserhead." And they try to walk onto UA, and a giant metal door slams in their face, and he says, "Thank you. You can go on your business." And they say, "Sure," and they go on their business. And he feels a little bit more at ease, but says, I'm very hesitant to do this, but you can keep my daughter, but I must have a deal with you." And he goes, "Sure. If she gets hurt one time, you kick her out or expel her immediately." And he says, "Yes, sir." And it's now the licensing exams. And Izumi gets it first try like in canon. They do everything similar like in canon. And Toga, since she is bi in the story, is doing the same thing. She dressed up as Cammy and tried to make a move on Izuku. Or not Izuku. Damn it. Izumi. The female version of Izuku. And it didn't work very well. Because she didn't have Bakugo's blood. She had Uraraka's blood. And Izumi was straight. So now it's the internships, and she goes with Night Eye, and she has the same test as in canon, and Night Eye says, "Why weren't you faster? You could have been faster." And she goes, "If I was any faster, I would have stepped on all of your collectibles," like in canon. And he notices that none of the posters, none of the bookshelves, nothing was touched. None of the All Might memorabilia was touched. And he walks over and stamps it, and he says, "I'm going to try to make you give it to Mirio." And she goes, "Okay, you can try, but I'm not giving up my chance to be a hero like All Might." And he goes, "Fine." And Mirio and Izumi go on a patrol, and Mirio, or Eri, bumps into Izumi and Mirio, and this time it's different. Izuku saw the panic face on Aries, Aries' panic face, and before the person could walk out of the alley, she's like, "We gotta go to the police because something's happening at her home." And Miri says, "I agree." So they walk out straight to the police station, and Overhaul gets pissed off at this and starts running after them, but sees that Izumi and Mirio are all gone. And her hero name is still Deku. So he sees that they're gone and gets pissed, and then completely blows up the alley with his quirk and walks back to the group. And so Eri is not taken back to the Yakuza. Instead, she is taken away from the Yakuza earlier. And Night Eye, who's been trying to get evidence to take down the Yakuza, gets a call from uh, Izumi and Mirio, and they fill him in on what happened and said that Overhaul was running after a girl, and this girl was scared for her life, so we picked her up and took her to the cops, and she's now with the police department, and we're with her right this second. And Night Eye says, okay, I'm coming immediately. So Night Eye gets there and says, okay, and what did this man look like? And they say it was the leader of the Yakuza. I forgot his name. God damn it. They say it was Overhaul, and they show him a picture of Overhaul and say that is exactly who we saw in the alley after we left or jumped onto a roof. And Night Eye says, okay, I will. Okay, we need to wait a little bit, and we'll use Eri to gain enough evidence to take them down. And Izumi, hearing use Eri, is like, she's already been used, and starts getting defensive of Eri. And Night Eye goes, no. We are going to use the things that happened to Eri to take down the Yakuza. And he starts explaining the process to actually get a warrant to search the premises and pick up all the villains. And Deku goes, we wouldn't need one if we only did true hero work and not have to search random places. And Night Eye goes, I know, I understand. He's like, okay, I'm going to do one thing today, and this one thing is going to be very helpful. And he sees that they leave Eri at the police station, and the police station goes boom. And he goes, okay, we got to take Eri with us. And the police are like, why? And he goes, I've used my quirk on this little one, and something bad happens if she stays here. But if she goes with us, nothing bad will happen. And they go, yes, sir. And Eri, he says, the man with the bird mask is going to hurt everybody. And they go, no, he isn't. We're not going to let him touch you. And it's now the Overhaul raid because Fat Gum says that they have a quirk canceling bullet now, and they need to stop the production. And Night Eye says that we have the source of the quirk canceling bullets. And Fat Gum says, what do you mean source? And Night Eye pulls up a picture of Eri and says that Overhaul has been using this little girl as a source to make bullets that cancel people's quirks. And Fat Gum immediately looks pissed off and says we need to take him down now. And all these small-time heroes are left outside to round up the extras, and all the normal people who go in, and the raid pretty much goes to canon, except for Night Eye dying, and Mirio getting hit with a quirk-canceling bullet, because Eri's not there for him to have to shield. So, Overhaul, Deku at this point in time, because of how long it's been, now has 100% control, so she can go 100% constantly. So the fight with Overhaul goes a lot faster, and Eri's not involved. And after Eri goes in and starts, after the raid, Eri wakes up from a sickness that she feels, and her horn has shrunk from the experiences, not the experiences, from the her horn has shrunk from the illness, and they're like, okay, the signifier of her activating her quirk probably is the horn. And Aizawa is now relieved of Class 1A home uh, uh, Class 1A duties for homeroom duties, and he has to go help Eri control her quirk. So that happens a little earlier, and the festival happens like canon. But instead of a male Izuku, it's a female Izuku. It's Izumi, and a lot more guys show up and are there to watch Izumi dance. And happens to canon, and yeah. So that's a one shot for what if Izumi or Deku was a female in canon My Hero. The only difference was I changed a few genders and changed a few quirks in All for One, because we don't know all the quirks. No one knows all the quirks because All Might left some of them out. And I just didn't feel like doing enough research to actually list all the quirks. So, hope you guys like this section. It's a one shot, it's an hour. Never mind, I was about to say it's a very quick one shot for being 30 minutes, but it's an hour. If you guys like the video, if you guys like my content at all, please think about subscribing. And I'm going to put a link to my Discord in the description. And if you guys really like my content and want to chat with me personally, pick up my Discord, and the first 10 people, and I already have 2 that join, they're going to be called the top 10 criminals, and I'm changing the top 10 criminals every Sunday for how many what ifs they suggest that week, and I'll count. It's going to take a while, but I'll count. So hopefully you guys have a great, wonderful day whenever you're seeing this, and I wish you guys all the best in your endeavors.